Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're really digging into a case that's just full of tension, the life and death of Donald J. Beardslee. Our goal here is to pull out the key details from the sources, really get into the legal side, the psychological complexities of how the system judged him. A man whose life, it seems, was marked by both extreme discipline and then this terrible, explosive chaos. This isn't just about the crimes. It's more about looking at the split in someone. We're asking when someone can be compliant for decades, but also capable of, shocking violence, how does the law figure out intent? True responsibility.
That really is the nub of it. The sources make us look hard at what guilt even means, especially, when there's a clear, verifiable brain trauma involved. We're trying to see how the legal system handles human nature when it's fractured like this. Does that kind of psychological damage reduce intent in the eyes of the law? Or does the final act, the consequence, always overshadow what's going on inside?
Okay, so let's start from the beginning. Donald J. Beardslee, born in St. Louis, 1943. Early life, the sources say, pretty standard Midwestern upbringing. Quiet kid, obedient, smart, eldest child. Seemed structured.
Yeah, but that structure, it really fell apart when he was only 11. His father died. And that seems to be the first major break. Sources say he became very withdrawn emotionally right away. He couldn't process that grief, apparently, and started looking for external discipline to kind of replace that internal stability he'd lost.
Which led him, to military school at 15, then the U.S. Air Force in 62. Aircraft mechanic. So again, functioning fine inside a very ordered world, following rules.
Exactly. He found systems he could work within until 1965. This is really the moment everything changes. He got involved in something minor, an attempted vehicle theft. It led to discipline, sure, but also a transfer to work camp up in Minnesota. And it was there, while he was working, a huge tree fell, hit him right on the head, skull fracture. He was in a coma for several days.
Wow. So a major physical injury. But the sources stressed the change afterward wasn't just physical, right? It was deeper.
Oh, absolutely. When he woke up, people noticed things were different. Subtle at first, maybe. He was quieter than ever, detached. His moods became unpredictable. And we know, medically speaking, the injury hit the right hemisphere of his brain hard. Now, if you think of the left brain as like engine logic, language, doing things, the right brain is more like the brakes. It handles empathy, impulse control, emotional response, judging social situations. For Beardslee, the picture painted is that the engine worked okay, he could follow orders, hold a job, but the brakes severely damaged, almost gone.
So after his discharge, he tried college, but that calm exterior, it was starting to show cracks. The brake system was unreliable, as you put it.
Yeah.
And then 1969, the first awful lethal consequence of that damage.
That's right. He met a woman, Laura, in a Missouri bar. They went back to her place, and the sources are clear. There was no fight beforehand, no obvious motive. It just erupted. Laura was strangled and drowned. It's almost a textbook example, sadly, of that kind of right brain damage impulsivity, the inability to regulate emotion leading to sudden catastrophic violence.
But then the contrast kicks in immediately. The crime itself, brutal. Yet Beardslee turns himself in, confesses just hours later. Very calm about it, apparently.
He pleaded guilty, got nearly 20 years, but was paroled after only 7. Why? Because inside prison, he was, again, the model inmate. Quiet, followed all the rules.
So the brake fails catastrophically in the moment, but the operational, logical side could perform perfectly fine within the structure of prison.
It's that stark division again. So he gets out, aims for a fresh start, moves to California in 77, Redwood City, tries community college. People described him as calm, respectful, maybe a bit distant, but functioning, finding structure.
But here's the thing that strikes me. He doesn't just avoid trouble. He walks right back into a high-risk situation. Moves in with Ricardo Soria, gets involved with her drug circle, people like William Forrester, Frank Rutherford. Not exactly a low-key crowd.
And that speaks volumes about his judgment, doesn't it? Someone with intact emotional processing, intact judgment, would likely steer clear of that scene, given his history. But Beardslee's damaged right hemisphere, it probably couldn't make that connection, couldn't properly weigh the risk. Sources say he was mostly in the background, a follower, not calling the shots.
Still, he let the crucial meeting happen at his place, April '81. Stacey Benjamin was supposed to bring drug money, but she showed up without it or kept it.
Right, and the confrontation was planned at his apartment. That's where things spiraled.
Stacey arrived, but she wasn't alone. She brought her friend, Patty Gedling, who was just 23.
Tensions were high. And then Rutherford pulls out a sawed-off shotgun, fires it. Patty's hit in the shoulder.
Just the shoulder. Survivable, right, with medical help.
Absolutely survivable.
Yeah.
But what happened next is horrifying. And this is where Beardslee's role shifts from passive follower to, well, active participant in the eyes of the law. Instead of getting help, they put Patty in a van, drove her somewhere remote. And Beardslee later said he thought killing her would be merciful. A truly chilling statement.
So Patty was shot again, fatally this time, and left by the road. Then they drove Stacy somewhere else, strangled her with a wire. Beardslee was there for all of it.
His exact physical role in Stacy's death is maybe less clear, but legally he was present, involved, responsible.
And then comes another one of those baffling moments. The police find Beardslee's phone number on Patty's clothes somehow. They call him, and he just answers. Calmly agrees to meet them, and then leads them straight to Stacy's body.
Yes, he confessed his involvement right away, but he also claimed he was terrified of Rutherford acting under duress.
That part's hard to square, isn't it? If you're that terrified, do you calmly cooperate with police and lead them to the evidence? Or is that, again, the compliance side kicking back in once the immediate chaos stops?
I think it's likely the latter. It's the cycle playing out again. The damaged brake meant he maybe couldn't stop the violence while it was happening. He was overwhelmed, perhaps easily led by a dominant figure like Rutherford.
Sure.
But once it was over, the logical, compliant part, the part that military school and prison reinforced took over, confessing, cooperating, that was seeking order again, even if that order meant going back to prison.
So this sets up the 1983 trial perfectly. Two completely different ways to see Beardslee.
Exactly. The prosecution went hard on responsibility. They argued he was a decision maker, not just a follower.
Yeah.
And critically, they used the 1969 murder of Laura.
To show a pattern.
Precisely. To establish a history of lethal violence. Under California law at the time, that allowed them to argue for malice aforethought.
Right.
Essentially, that he had a specific cold intent to kill, regardless of any brain injury. They framed it as his nature, not just damaged impulse.
While the defense obviously hammered on the brain damage, the right hemisphere injury, the lack of emotional judgment, the fear of Rutherford, the duress argument.
But the jury bought the prosecution's narrative. Intent, pattern. He was found guilty of both murders, first degree.
And the sentences were different.
Yes, and this is where it gets really stark. Death sentence for Patty Gedling's murder. Life without parole for Stacey Benjamin's.
Okay, but wait. Of everyone involved in those 1981 murders,
He was the only one who got the death penalty.
Rutherford, the guy with the shotgun, the one everyone supposedly feared.
Life without parole. Same as Beardslee got for Stacey. Forrester was acquitted entirely. Ricky Soria, got 15 years to life.
That seems incredibly disproportionate. How does the quiet follower get death while the shooter doesn't?
It likely came down to that 1969 murder again. The prosecution successfully argued it showed a pattern unique to Beardslee. Rutherford's violence, terrible as it was, could be framed as a single, impulsive, albeit brutal act within the context of the drug dispute. Beardslee's actions, especially his merciful comment about Patty, combined with the earlier murder, allowed them to paint him as someone with a colder, more cyclical capacity for killing. It wasn't just impulse, it was, in their view, a calculated choice rooted in a dangerous history. That distinction likely swayed the jury towards the ultimate penalty for him alone. So after the trial, he's on death row at San Quentin, and the pattern continues.
For over 20 years, yes. Back to the model inmate. Quiet, respectful. Sources say he even taught other inmates. Found stability within that ultimate structure, ironically.
His lawyers kept fighting. They did, for 2 decades. Their main argument evolved as neuroscience did. They weren't just arguing duress anymore. They were pushing hard on the brain damage evidence. They argued the full, devastating extent of that right hemisphere injury, how it fundamentally impaired his judgment and impulse control, was never properly understood or presented to the 1983 jury. The science just wasn't as clear back then.
So they were asking for clemency, commute the sentence to life, not release him?
Exactly. Based on this updated understanding of his mental state, acknowledging the crimes, but arguing the death penalty was inappropriate given the neurological damage.
But the system held firm.
It did. Clemency was denied by the governor. All the appeals ran out. The courts basically stuck with the original finding, that his actions, despite the injury, demonstrated sufficient intent to warrant the death penalty. The finality of the verdict stood.
Which brings us to January 19th, 2005, his execution.
Right. And even then, the sources note that quiet, composed demeanor held. He was 61, declined a special last meal, just ate the standard prison dinner, macaroni, salad, cake, I think it was, made no final statement. Witnesses described him as quiet, composed right until the lethal injection began.
So now you, the listener, have the whole story laid out. The disciplined surface, the damaged mind beneath, the terrible crimes, the legal fight.
It really forces you to wrestle with that core question, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Beardslee's case pushes us to ask, when science shows us a mind is physically broken in ways that affect judgment and impulse, how capable is our justice system of adjusting? Can it truly assign punishment that reflects diminished capacity? Or does the sheer horror of the consequence, the deaths, inevitably demand the maximum penalty allowed by law, regardless of the internal state of the person?
So, the final thought I want to leave you with is this. Reflecting on Beardslee's life and death, what does justice mean here? If we aim for knowledge, for understanding, is justice purely about punishment, retribution? Or does it, or should it, involve a deeper reckoning with the complexities of the mind being judged? Think about it. Where do you personally draw that line between a broken impulse fueled by trauma and cold, calculated criminal intent? What stands out most to you in this case?
If you enjoyed this video and want to dive deeper into more cases like this one, make sure to subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to like the video if you found the story compelling, and share it with your friends and family who might be interested in true crime and mysteries. By subscribing, you'll stay up to date with all our latest content and join a growing community of curious minds exploring the most fascinating cases. Click the notification bell so you never miss an upload. Your support means everything.